With the Democratic National Convention now finally over, we are now into the end game for the 2024 election. We are now just a few short months away from election night, and as of right now, things are seriously starting to ramp up. And as both sides prepare for election night and everything they can possibly do to try and win it, today we're going to be updating the map on the current map prediction for who is going to win the election. And today we're going to be basing the map not off of the polling averages, but off the newest polls. And so just to explain what I mean here, instead of looking at this, the RCP average, which is a combination of all the polls put together, we're instead going to be looking at this one, which is the newest poll for that state. The reason for this is because I said before during the Democratic National Convention that once the Democratic National Convention was over, that's when the real polls, we're going to start getting the real polls come out. And when the real polls start coming out, that we're actually going to get a better idea of who is actually winning, who's probably going to win, and when we might actually get a better idea of who's going to actually win the election. Because now we are in the end game for this election, so the real polls are going to start coming out, and so we're now in the first phase of that. So we're going to look at the newest polls to get a better understanding of who's winning, rather than the polling average, which puts together all the polls, even the ones from way before, this point during the process towards the election. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Let's get started. Starting off in Washington, nothing has changed here. The state still leans heavily towards Harris. They'll still nowhere near as much as 2016 or 2020, but overall not much to talk about there. The state's going to stay likely Democratic. There you go. That's Washington. Let's move on to Oregon. Now on to Oregon, as we can see here, it is getting a lot more competitive, especially compared to 2020 and 2016. You can see here, it's only up by 5. Harris is only up by 5% compared to 16.4 for Biden and 10.6 for Clinton back in 2016. So with that, we're actually going to be putting it into the lean. We don't have 4 options for this map. We only have 3. I only put safe if it's like over 12%. If it's over 5 to 12%, I'll put it as likely. If it's 5 or below, I'll put it as lean. So Oregon is actually going to fall into the lean category for this map. Now let's move on to California. Not even going to look at it. It's 25% for Harris. California, as usual, will be a solidly blue state. We'll take a quick look at it just to show you guys. So you can see it right here. California, solidly blue state. It's just not going to be competitive at all. There's no doubt whatsoever the state is going to go to Harris. It would be something out of a dream if this state was to somehow go red this election, but that's just simply not going to happen. California will, without a doubt, be going to Harris this election. With that, we now reach our very first battleground state, and that is the state of Nevada. Highly important state. It has 6 electoral votes. And as we can see here, kind of an interesting little thing here. The RCP average actually has it labeled as a complete tie at the moment. So if this is based off the polling averages, in this state, we wouldn't know what to do with this state because it's currently a tie. But because we're going off of the newest polls, the newest poll right now has the state labeled as up for Trump by just 1%. So that's a big deal. However, we can also see here that part of the reason why this state is labeled as a tie is that Bloomberg made its own new polls, and as usual, Bloomberg is extremely well known for overestimating the Democrats significantly. We see it has Harris up by 4%. That is just not true. That's just simply too much. It could be 1%. It could be 2%. That's a lot more realistic. 4% is just simply too much. It could be 1 or 2% for Trump. It could be 1 or 2% for Harris. 4% for Harris, just not realistic, at least not at the moment. So the RCP average has it a tie, but we're going off the newest poll, which has Trump by 1%. So this state will be lean Republican, and with that, we have some red on the board now. Let's move on immediately to the next battleground state, Arizona. And as you can see here, Arizona, it is still very competitive. However, we can see here, looking a little bit closer, we can see Trump has actually expanded his lead slightly since Democratic National Convention, which is an odd twist, which is not a very good one for Kamala Harris. We can see right after the Democratic National Convention, Trump's lead actually began to slightly grow, and it's now up to 0.5%. When before Harris was even ahead at one point before the Democratic National Convention, but then Trump had 0.2% ahead, and has since grown to 0.5. Nevertheless, it's very fluid. Nothing's really all that solid, at least as at the moment. But for right now, going at the newest poll, has Trump up by 1%. The one before that has Trump up by 3%. But going off the newest 1%, that means that the state will stay as lean Republican. Let's move on to all of the... Actually, before we do that, let's just go ahead and get Alaska and Hawaii out of the way. Both states are going to be solid for red. Alaska's going to be solid for red. Hawaii will be solid for blue. There's no competition there whatsoever. They just always do that. Now let's fill in all the solid red states, the states that we have no doubt whatsoever what's going to be happening to them at all. And those are all these states up here. All these states, there's really no talk whatsoever. They're all just going to be solidly red. In Nebraska, we're going to be putting the state as solid red for the state overall in both the 1st and 3rd district. The 2nd district, however, we're going to be putting as lean Democratic. But with that, that's all of the, well, that's most of the western part of the country filled out. We have still 3 states left: Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas. Let's start with Colorado. Colorado, we have absolutely nothing new from this state from any recent times. You see, the most recent state, the most recent poll that we have goes all the way back to January, but so we really just don't have much to go off of with this one. But based on what we do have, it's going to be a likely Democratic state. We just don't have much going from this state, but based on what we do have, it's going to stay a likely Democratic state. Moving on to New Mexico now. Same thing, we have a few more recent things, but again, these are still from before Biden dropped out. But even then, it was still a likely Democratic state, so chances are things haven't changed that much. So we'll just leave the state as likely Democratic. Now let's move on to a big state, or the 2nd biggest state in the country, and that is Texas. Let's see what's going on over there. Texas again, there's just nothing recent from here to talk about, but Texas in general, there's always this talk about, oh, maybe the Democrats are going to win it. Harris is even talking about, she'll flip Texas and then Democrats will win by this huge margin, and in reality, it's just not going to happen. There are 4 big states in the country, and that's California, New York, Texas, and Florida, and then there's always talk about maybe this is a flip, maybe this will change, but in reality, that's not going to happen. Florida used to be competitive, it's just not anymore. The reality is it pretty much always happens. California and New York, these 2 big states are blue. Texas and Florida, these 2 are red, and that's really just not going to change anytime soon. It's going to be a long time before we see that pattern change. So Texas is going to be likely Republican, and really there's just no chance whatsoever that that's going to change at all. That state is going to be almost solidly red. In fact, did I read this wrong? Actually, the newest poll, if we go off the newest poll, it has Trump up by 13%. So following the rule, it's actually going to be solid. We're going to put the state as a solidly red state for now. It's probably is more in the likely region, but nevertheless strongly Republican. It's just not going to change whatsoever. Let's go over to Minnesota now. Minnesota is a battleground state, and we do have some new polling from this state from after the Democratic National Convention, and kind of surprisingly, Harris's lead has dropped since before the Democratic National Convention. We can see here it used to be 6% according to the most recent poll, and by the way, that poll is done by Fox News. The newest poll only has Harris up by 5%, so that's actually going to drop Minnesota down to just a lean state from a likely state. So it's kind of an odd trend. We're seeing a lot of states where the Democratic National Convention was supposed to boost Harris, and in reality, we're seeing her popularity go down more in a lot of these states. And then we're into this end game now for this election. And Minnesota has always, for a long time, been a pretty strong, solid blue state. And it's starting to change now. Harris is just seeing her big boost that she got when Biden first dropped out is really fading away now. We're seeing it get more to an even playing field, and Trump is catching up and even, in some cases, pulling ahead when he should be falling behind. But overall, let's just get the Midwestern states out of the way, and then we'll fill in the Northeast and then the Southeast. Let's go to Wisconsin now, another super important state. Wisconsin, we have an interesting situation here. If we were going off the RCP average, we would have to give it to Harris by a lean margin with 1.4 on the RCP average. However, again, we look at here, the newest poll by the Trafalgar Group has Trump up by 1%. So we're actually going to be giving this state to Trump. This is the newest poll conducted after the Democratic National Convention that we have. There is another one here that also has Trump up by 1%. So it's, however, pretty much the only reason why that state is even supposed to go to Harris at all mostly comes down to this Bloomberg poll. And again, you can just kind of see how this is ridiculous. We have so many polls that clearly show how close this state really is. We have 1%, 2% all over the board, and then you just have Bloomberg here with 8%. Like, if I was making a poll on the most recent polls. No, sorry, if I was making a video based off all the newest polls, and Bloomberg was the newest poll, I might just go to the next one. I might just ignore it because they are so, like, look how out of the water this is. 1% for Trump, 1% for Trump, 1% for Harris, tie. 1% for Trump, 1% for Harris, 2% for Harris, 1% for Trump, 8% for Harris. Like, it's so clearly not real, if that makes any sense. So, and that's really the only reason why this is labeled as 1.4 up for Harris is because of that. So, if I had to stay neutral, I would still listen to it just because that is labeled as the RCP average. The Trafalgar Group is in my opinion more trustworthy. However, of course, they're as with all the polling services go, they've all had their level of questionability at times. The Trafalgar Group is no different, but they are overall fairly reliable. They're not that bad, and they do have Trump up by 1%. They are the newest poll, so we will be giving Wisconsin to Trump by a lean margin, at least as of right now for this video. Now let's go over to Michigan, highly important state. Now here, this is interesting. Once again, we have the Trafalgar Group. They are the newest poll for Michigan, and they have it listed as a tie. And if we go here to the RCP average, it has Harris up by 1.1%. And again, Bloomberg actually seems to be getting their crap together here. Remember, Bloomberg before, they had a poll which had Harris up by a ridiculous 12% in Michigan. Now they had a new poll conducted recently that has Harris up by 3%. For once, that seems like that makes a lot more sense in my opinion. For once, I would actually trust that Bloomberg report. I would actually see that as being fairly legitimate / realistic. But so what we're going to do here, since the most recent poll has Michigan labeled as a tie, we will be looking at the RCP average for this state only, and it has Harris up by 1.1%. So with that, we'll be giving the state to Harris by a lean margin. There we go. So there we go. We have Minnesota Democrat, Wisconsin Republican, Michigan Democrat. Let's go to Pennsylvania, the last super important state out of these four. And here we got another interesting situation where the RCP average has changed. Remember in my previous video, in the first one, it was Trump was up by 0.1, then it went to 0.2. Now we have a flip where Harris is up by 0.5 in the RCP average. But in the most recent polling, we have by the Trafalgar Group yet again, which is again the most recent poll conducted from the 28th to the 30th, so like literally a few days ago. We have Trump up by 2%. The one before has labeled as a tie. Bloomberg, again, this is a little bit far-fetched, has Harris up by 4%. It's not ridiculous. It's not like it's 12% for Harris out of nowhere. 4% is still a little bit high in my opinion. It probably should be more like 2 or 1% for Harris. But nevertheless, it's still that's a lot better than what Bloomberg is known for. But going off the most recent one, which is the Trafalgar Group, it has Trump up by 2%, so that's where we're going to be going. So we will be giving Pennsylvania to Trump by a lean margin of just, what did that say, 2% by 2%. Now let's go ahead and just fill in a lot of these other states that we already know is what's going to be happening with those. Iowa is going to be, actually, I think they changed. Let's look at Iowa. It's a little interesting over there. If we look at Iowa, yeah, we can see that there's just not much to look at here. I thought things changed. It really didn't. But yeah, you see the newest one is Trump up by 15%. No, nothing to talk about here. It's going to be a solidly red state. Let's just get the other ones done with. Indiana is going to be solidly red. Ohio is going to be solidly red. Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, is from Ohio. So that pretty much guarantees the state's going to go him by a solid margin, possibly likely, but I'm gonna put it on solid. Let's take a look. Actually, let's look at Ohio for that. Okay, we'll put it as likely because we can see here that Ohio, it's a little bit closer than previously stated. See here that Ohio, according to the most recent poll from the 13th to the 17th, has Trump up by 7%. So just for the heck of it, just to be fair, we'll be switching Ohio from solid to likely. Nevertheless, there's pretty much no doubt whatsoever that it's going to be going to Trump by a strong / solid margin. As for Illinois, there's not much to talk about there. There's nothing really recent there. It's going to be a solidly blue state. It just always is. And with that, that's pretty much all the Midwest filled out. Let's move on to the other important states, the New England states, which are all up here. Let's start with the state of Maryland. Maryland, we don't have anything new. It's going to be a solidly blue state, clearly 26%. So nothing to talk about. It's going to be solidly blue. Added to Columbia, that's going to be solidly blue as well. Rhode Island, which is right here, is going to be solidly blue. And so will Vermont. So will um, so will Massachusetts. This one will. New Jersey, I believe, according to the most recent poll, is actually going to be a likely state, not a solidly red. Sorry, not a solidly blue state. And Delaware will also be likely, not solid. New York, let's actually take a look at New York, because New York's is actually getting a little bit more interesting. We don't have anything from after the Democratic National Convention, but we do at least have something that's fairly recent. That's the 28th to the 1st of August, which has Harris up by 14%, which again is nowhere near where she wants to be for a state that is traditionally so blue. But by 2%, it still is going to be a solidly blue state, so we'll be putting it as solidly blue. Let's go to New Hampshire, which actually is now listed as a battleground state. See here in New Hampshire, we do have some recent polling from not exactly after the Democratic National Convention, but from right around that time. And it's a lot closer than you would expect. It is going to expect to go to Harris by just 5%, which means it's not quite a likely state. It's still I'm gonna leave it as a lean state for the Democrats. But we can see the state that you would think would be quite blue is actually a lot more competitive than you might think. As for Maine, let's just say it. Maine is currently stated that it's going to go blue solidly, and then the first district will be solidly blue as well. But according to the most recent polling, the second district will also be lean Democratic. That's just not true. The second district is going to go Republican. There's no doubt about that. That poll is obviously botched and just not true. Maine 2nd District should absolutely go to Donald Trump, and it will on election night. There's just no doubt about that. But according to the most recent polling, it does have it stated as being lean Democratic. So just going off of that, we'll just leave it as such. But the reality is, it's going to go Republican. There's just no denying that. Let's fill in all these other states that just don't really have anything to talk about. Yeah, these states are all solidly red. All these states here. There we go. And there we go. There you go. That fills in pretty much all of the states that we know for a fact without any doubt in our minds will be Republican. Now we have 4 states left, and that is the states of Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Let's start with Virginia. We don't have anything from after the Democratic National Convention, but we do have some recent polling, and according to the most recent polling, it's actually a lot closer than Harris would obviously want it to be, and that is just 3%. So with just 3% as the most recent polling, we're going to be putting the state as a lean Democratic state. And I should point this out. When I said in my last video, when Biden dropped out, Minnesota, Virginia, and New Hampshire in the polling averages were expected to go to Donald Trump. They actually did flip to Donald Trump in the polling averages, and that's when Biden dropped out. Because at the end of the day, he saw the writing on the wall. He knew it was game over. He knew he was not going to win that election. He can give all this whole story about, blah, blah, blah. He wanted to make the right decision. He gave this whole sob story about all this stuff that he thought was right and all that he should step down and he shouldn't run again and all that. And that was all bullcrap. He dropped out because his money dried up for his campaign. And he knew, and the writing on the wall was he was screwed. It was drop out or lose. It was either lose or just not run. So clearly, there's no denying that he should not have been running in that election to begin with for the Democrats. Because now Harris is in here, and she's kind of still trying to get her campaign put together and running for this election and gain popularity. And we're already in the end game. We're in the end game for this election, because we're just 2 months away from the election coming up. So they tried to paint this whole, he's like George Washington. George Washington, he only served 2 terms and he stepped down willingly, which at the time was that was insane. The leader stepped down and gave up power. That's crazy. And they're trying to paint Joe Biden as being this Washington-like figure who gave up his power willingly for the greater good and all that. No, that's all. Part of my language. That was a load of shit. That was a load of bullcrap. He absolutely wanted to be the president again. He did not want to step down. He stepped down because his money was gone and he was screwed. That's what it was about. All that sob story he gave was just a load of crap. Just long story short, that's what it was. That's what it really was about. Let's go into North Carolina. North Carolina, another super close state. We can see we got some changes. Looking down here, we can look down here. See, it's very close, but there are some changes. The state is getting more competitive, but according to the most recent polling conducted after the Democratic National Convention, it still has Trump up by 1%, and so do these other two that came before it. So going off the newest poll, we will be giving North Carolina to the Republicans by just a lean margin. So let's go to Georgia now. Georgia, another one of those incidents. The most recent poll has it labeled as a tie, which is quite interesting. So we have no choice but to look at the RCP average, which has Trump up by 0.2%. So going based off the RCP average, we will be getting Georgia to Republicans by just a lean margin. But the most recent poll has it labeled as a tie, so we'll have to see what happens. But at the moment, it's quite close. As for Florida, we already know what Florida's going to look like. It's not even labeled as a battleground state because it's not anymore. Florida is going to be a strongly red state. There's really just nothing to talk about. Looking here, yeah, it's the most recent poll has it up by just 3%. However, this was conducted almost a month ago. We haven't got anything new here, and really the reason for that is because there's nothing to talk about. Everyone knows Florida is going to be a pretty solidly red state, and it's just not competitive anymore. It used to be competitive. You can see 2016 it was still quite competitive, 2020 somewhat, but it's just not competitive anymore. And again, looking at the most recent polling, however, I should say this. My last two videos, we looked at the average, but looking at the most recent polling, which was conducted almost a month ago, but nevertheless, it just has Trump up by 3%. So instead of likely, we have no choice but to put it down as a lean Republican state, but in reality, it's going to be a likely state at least. So, and with that, this is your current election, based off everything that we have. Based off all the newest polls conducted after the Democratic National Convention, this is my first election update. We are now in the end game for this election. So now we got the real polls that are going to start coming out. We have a lot more polls that are going to start coming out for one. We have, and again, so we're now into the countdown phase towards this election where, like, this is where things start getting heated up. I'm sure in October, all you're going to be seeing is campaign ads on, like, YouTube and all that. That's all you're going to be seeing is campaign ads, because now we are really in. This is the moment. This is the time when it's like, it's going to start getting real. So, but based on all the newest polls that we have, this is what the election is going to look like. Trump's supposed to win with 296 electoral votes to Harris's only 242. With that, Trump is still the favorite to win when looking at the newest polls. And with that, I'll see you guys next time. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.